Okay, now we're going to look at ATP, both hydrolysis and synthesis. And remember, this is a major energy molecule in our bodies, providing energy that will drive unfavorable reactions. So ATP hydrolysis is coupled to a reaction that would otherwise be unfavorable without the energy provided by that ATP. And the entirety of this structure is ATP, adenosine, 5' triphosphate. It is composed of the carbohydrate ribose, which is a 5-carbon sugar. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is the 5' carbon. And that tells me where those phosphate groups are attached. So we have 3 phosphates, so triphosphate, and then adenine is one of the bases from DNA, our nucleic acid bases. Adenosine 5' diphosphate would have only 2 phosphate groups, so this would be diphosphate. And we can also have AMP, 5' adenosine monophosphate, if we were to have only one phosphate group on our molecule here. So I indicated hydrolysis of ATP releases energy. And if we hydrolyze one of these phosphate groups, so this bond is broken from our ATP molecule, we end up with ADP and what is called inorganic phosphate. And this process of hydrolysis that forms ADP releases 7.3 kilocalories per mole of energy that can be utilized by other reactions. Phosphorylation of ADP is the reverse of this reaction, where phosphate group is added to ADP. So here we have that phosphate group, and we have the formation of that bond between phosphorus and oxygen here. We lose a molecule of water, essentially, and form ATP. So note that depending upon which way this reaction is going, we have either a negative energy change, negative 7.3 kilocalories per mole. That's because we are releasing energy, so this would be exothermic, an exothermic process. I'm just going to do exo. And ATP synthesis, on the other hand, energy is absorbed, and we see that that is a positive. So this is an endothermic process. I can't write very well with a mouse. And so when we synthesize ATP, we are storing energy. Okay, that can be utilized at a later time. Anything or any process that requires energy then is fueled by the release of energy when ATP is hydrolyzed. So I mentioned coupled reactions before, and coupled reactions are reactions that occur in pairs. And this process has arisen because one of the reactions is unfavorable. So in order for that unfavorable reaction to proceed, it relies on energy that's released by the other reaction. So they're coupling. So coupling of an energetically unfavorable reaction with a favorable one that releases more energy than the amount required is common in biological reactions. So ATP plays a major role in fueling our biological processes. And here's an example of that. This is actually the first step in glycolysis, and we'll be taking a look at that momentarily. But here we have a glucose molecule reacting with HPO4 minus to make glucose 6-phosphate. This is the first step in glycolysis, and it requires energy, 3.3 kilocalories per mole. It is coupled with the hydrolysis of ATP. And ATP hydrolysis provides more energy than what is required here, so we still have a release or some extra energy left over. And so, and we then, of course, during that hydrolysis, we produce ADP as a product. So hydrolysis of ATP provides the energy for the phosphorylation of glucose in that first step of glycolysis. And we will see that this also requires an enzyme. And that's what we're going to look at next.